I had been working for Bradley and Company for over 5 years. It was a solid job with decent pay and benefits, but more importantly, it had given me a chance to prove myself. My hard work, long hours, and dedication had earned me more than just a paycheck. It earned me respect, or at least, I thought it did. This year, I decided to treat myself. I had been talking about going to the Super Bowl for years, and when I finally saw an opportunity to get tickets through a promotion at work, I jumped at it. It wasn't just any ticket either, it was a pair of premium seats. I had earned these tickets through my performance over the last year, meeting goals, going above and beyond on every project. I had even exceeded my targets by a significant margin. I had worked so hard, and now I was about to reap the reward. When I told my boss, Greg, about the tickets, he smiled and congratulated me. He seemed genuinely happy for me, but I should have known better. He had always been a little too eager to know the details of everyone's personal lives. At first, I thought nothing of it. He asked if I would be willing to share the tickets with him and his family. I hesitated, but knowing he was my boss, I didn't want to appear rude. I told him that I would think about it. The closer the game got, the more excited I became. I had made plans with my best friend, Greg's demands for the tickets forgotten. It was going to be an unforgettable weekend, a celebration of all my hard work, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. But then, just 2 days before the game, Greg asked me to stop by his office. I thought it was just another routine conversation, so I walked in, smiling and ready to talk. What happened next caught me completely off guard. "Listen," Greg said, his tone unusually serious. "I need those tickets for the weekend. I've got some clients in town, and I want to entertain them at the game. They're a huge deal for the company, and I need you to give them to me." I blinked, not believing what I was hearing. I had worked so hard to earn these tickets. I had made personal sacrifices for this, sacrifices he didn't even know about. And now he was asking me to give them up? "Greg, I've already made plans," I said, my voice wavering a little. I was really looking forward to this. I earned those tickets through my work, and I can't just give them away. Greg smiled, but there was something in his eyes, something cold, something that told me this wasn't just a request. "Well," he said, his smile tightening, "you know how this company works, right? You wouldn't want to disappoint me, would you? Think of it as an investment for your future with Bradley and Company. Think of the exposure you'll get." I felt my stomach churn. This wasn't about the game. This wasn't about fun. It was all about his own agenda. He was using his position of power to get what he wanted, and I had no choice but to comply. If I said no, what would it mean for my career? Reluctantly, I nodded, handing over the tickets. "I guess you're right. Enjoy the game," I said, trying to sound casual, but inside I was boiling. He looked at me with a smile of triumph as if he had just won some kind of victory. The rest of the day felt like a blur. I tried to keep my composure, acting like nothing had changed, but inside I was furious. I couldn't believe it. Greg had just taken something I'd worked so hard for without a second thought. He hadn't even cared about how much it meant to me. He saw me as just another pawn in his game. I was his employee, and in his eyes, I was supposed to just obey. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the anger. It wasn't just about the tickets, it was about the principle. He had crossed a line. He had used his position to manipulate me, making me feel like I didn't have a choice. And what hurt the most was that I didn't stand up for myself when I should have. I let him take something that was mine, something I had earned through my own hard work. But then I had an idea, a plan. I couldn't just let this go, not without teaching him a lesson he wouldn't forget. I'd been playing nice, trying to keep things professional, but maybe it was time for him to feel the consequences of his actions. I couldn't just let him walk all over me, not anymore. I knew what I had to do, but it wasn't going to be easy. I needed to act dumb. Act like I didn't care, so that Greg wouldn't suspect anything. He thought he had won, but he hadn't. He had no idea what was coming his way. The day of the Super Bowl arrived, and I was determined to make sure that Greg regretted taking my tickets. I didn't want to make a scene. I wasn't the type to confront him in front of everyone. After all, I needed my job, but I knew I had the power to get back at him in a way he would never expect. I showed up to work that morning like it was just another day, pretending to be fine with everything. Greg, looking smug as ever, was practically glowing. He kept talking about how excited he was to take his clients to the game and how they'd be enjoying the best seats in the house. I nodded, forcing a smile. I didn't let on for a second that I was fuming inside, but what Greg didn't know was that I had already made a few changes of my own. I had taken advantage of the situation and worked quickly. While Greg was busy boasting about his Super Bowl plans, I had quietly made some adjustments to the tickets, the very ones he thought he had so easily taken from me. I wasn't going to make it easy for him to enjoy the game, and when the time came, I was going to make sure he regretted his decision. I knew the tickets were non-transferable, but what Greg didn't realize was that the vendor had made a simple error when he requested the transfer of the seats. A small one, but enough to cause confusion when they were scanned at the gate. I had called the stadium earlier that week, posing as a representative from the company. They had confirmed that the VIP tickets were, indeed, valid, but only if the name on the ticket matched the person who arrived at the gate. No exceptions. And I had made sure the name on those tickets wasn't Greg's. The Super Bowl was finally here, and I was surprisingly calm. The night before, I had double-checked everything. I had made sure the tickets were properly reissued with a different name than Greg's. I made sure that everything was in place. All I had to do now was wait for him to walk right into the trap I had set. At work, the excitement was palpable. People were talking about the game, their plans for the weekend, and of course, Greg couldn't stop bragging about how he was going to the game with his clients. It was as though he had completely forgotten who had originally earned those tickets. It was as if he thought he could just take whatever he wanted. But today, I was going to make sure he learned a lesson. I saw Greg head out around noon, looking smug as ever. He had his phone in one hand, already making arrangements with his clients. He was probably already envisioning himself enjoying his luxury seats, impressing everyone with his big deal at the Super Bowl. But I knew better. The moment he arrived at the stadium, his world was going to come crashing down. The game had started by the time I received the call. My phone rang just as I was relaxing at home, watching the game with a bag of chips in my hand. I didn't answer immediately, but then I saw Greg's name flashing on my screen. I smirked as I picked it up, knowing full well what he was about to say. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Hey, this is Greg. There's a problem. I'm at the stadium, and the tickets you gave me, well, there's an issue," he said, his voice sounding a little strained. "I went to scan them at the gate, but they're showing up as invalid. I'm at the entrance right now, and the guy is telling me I need to talk to you about this." I could hear the frustration in his voice, and I couldn't help but feel a little satisfaction, but I didn't let it show. "Really?" I said, acting confused. "That's strange. The tickets should be fine. Maybe the name on them is different from the one you used for the transfer?" Greg didn't respond immediately, but I could tell he was getting more agitated. "What do you mean? I don't understand. You said they were VIP tickets. What's going on? I'm here and I can't get in. This is ridiculous." I let out a small sigh, playing the part perfectly. "I'm really sorry, Greg. I don't know what to say. Maybe you should double-check with the box office. I know the tickets were valid when I got them, but if there's an issue with the transfer, maybe they can help clear it up." I could practically hear him grinding his teeth through the phone. "You're telling me to go talk to the box office?" he asked incredulously. "Do you realize how embarrassing this is? I can't believe this is happening right now. I gave up the opportunity to go to another game for this, for your tickets, and now I'm stuck outside." I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction hearing him squirm, but I kept my voice even. "I'm sorry, Greg. I wish I could do more. Good luck, though. I'm sure they'll get it sorted out." Before he could say anything else, I hung up the phone. And for the first time, I felt free. It wasn't about getting revenge. It was about standing up for myself and making sure that Greg understood the consequences of taking something that didn't belong to him. I watched the game on TV, feeling a strange sense of calm. I wasn't watching just for the game. I was watching to see how Greg would handle the mess I had set up. I could imagine him at the stadium, standing there with his phone pressed to his ear, growing more frustrated by the minute. I had no doubt that he was being grilled by the stadium staff, trying to explain that the tickets weren't valid. I could almost hear the whispers from the crowd as he stood there, embarrassed and defeated, realizing that he had no backup plan. As the game progressed, I kept an eye on my phone, waiting for another call. But this time, when the call came, it wasn't Greg. It was his assistant, Samantha. "Hey, this is Samantha from Greg's office," she said, sounding slightly breathless. "Greg asked me to reach out to you about the tickets. He's stuck at the entrance and he's asking if you can come down here and fix the issue with the tickets. He's really upset about this situation." I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Samantha, I'm really sorry. I'm at home watching the game, and I can't come down there to fix this. I'm sure the stadium staff can help him sort this out, though. Maybe they can reissue the tickets with the correct name or figure out the transfer issue." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell Samantha was trying to hold back her frustration. "This is ridiculous, Emma," she finally said. "Greg's made a huge fool of himself and now he's asking for your help. You really need to come down here and fix this." "No, Samantha," I said, trying to sound as composed as I could. "Greg is a grown man, and he's more than capable of sorting this out himself. I'm not going to drop everything to fix a situation he created." I could practically feel the tension on the other end of the phone as Samantha stammered for words. "So you're just going to leave him there? Do you even care about his reputation?" I could feel my pulse quicken, but I kept my tone steady. "I care about being treated fairly. I care about respect. I didn't get my tickets stolen by my boss for the fun of it, and I'm not here to save his reputation because he thought he could take something that wasn't his. I earned those tickets, and you know what? I'm not fixing this for him." After a few more attempts to convince me to come down and help out, Samantha finally gave up, her voice resigned. "Fine, but Greg is really furious with you. You've made this situation worse than it needed to be. He might not forget this." I didn't respond. Instead, I hung up the phone, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. I had no intentions of playing Greg's game anymore. He had stolen from me, tried to use his position to manipulate me, and now it was his turn to face the consequences. I wasn't going to be his doormat anymore, and I wasn't going to come to his rescue when he needed it most. Later that night, I heard from a few of my colleagues, some of whom had seen the aftermath of Greg's Super Bowl fiasco. Apparently, the situation had escalated so badly that he had to leave the stadium early. Embarrassed and angry, his clients were not happy with him, and neither was anyone else at the company. He had tried to play it off as a minor mistake, but the damage was already done. I smiled to myself. He had learned a lesson, but not the one he expected. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to rub it in. What mattered was that I had finally taken a stand. I had let him know that no one was going to walk all over me anymore, no matter how much power they thought they had. The next day at work, Greg walked past my desk, looking sheepish. He didn't say a word. I could see the frustration in his eyes, but this time, I wasn't backing down. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He finally stopped at my desk, cleared his throat, and said, "I owe you an apology, Emma. You were right. I shouldn't have taken those tickets. I was out of line." I nodded, not smiling, but acknowledging his admission. "It's not just about the tickets, Greg. It's about respect. If you want to work with people, you have to treat them right. I'm glad you've learned that." And with that, I went back to my work, knowing that I had done the right thing. Greg would think twice before ever trying to take advantage of me again. As the days passed, the fallout from Greg's embarrassing Super Bowl incident became the talk of the office. Word had spread quickly that he had been denied entry to the game because of the ticket mix-up. It didn't take long for the staff to realize that it was no accident. Greg had stolen those tickets, and it had backfired spectacularly. The company seemed to turn on him, albeit subtly. Colleagues who had once admired him began to distance themselves, realizing just how manipulative he could be. Samantha, his assistant, had quit a week later. The rumors were that she had been disgusted by his actions and the way he had handled the situation. He had lost respect, not just from me, but from the people who had once looked up to him. Meanwhile, I kept a low profile, not wanting to add fuel to the fire. But it wasn't easy. Greg kept avoiding me around the office, and when he did speak to me, it was with a forced smile and an uncomfortable tone. He knew that he couldn't just sweep this under the rug. His pride had taken a huge hit, and I could tell that he was struggling to maintain his authority in the office. One day, a couple of weeks after the Super Bowl incident, I was called into HR. I hadn't expected this, but I walked in, knowing that whatever came next, I had handled myself with dignity. The HR representative, Karen, was pleasant, but her expression was serious. "Emma, we just wanted to check in with you," she began. "We've been hearing about what happened with Greg, and we wanted to know if there was anything we could do to address the situation." I smiled, leaning back in my chair. "Honestly, Karen, there's not much to say. I've already learned my lesson. People in positions of power shouldn't take advantage of others, and it's clear to me that Greg has a lot to learn in that regard." Karen nodded, her expression softening. "We appreciate your professionalism in handling the situation. It's not easy to deal with situations like this, but you've managed it with grace." As I left the HR office, I felt a sense of vindication. The entire office knew that Greg had crossed a line and now he had to face the consequences. But I also realized something deeper. I had taken control of my situation. I didn't just let him walk all over me. I had made sure that he understood that actions have consequences. In the weeks that followed, I took on more responsibility at work. I had earned the respect of my peers and superiors, and I was no longer just the employee who kept her head down and did her job. I was someone who stood up for herself, who knew her worth, and who wouldn't let anyone take what was rightfully hers. As for Greg, I heard through the grapevine that his career at the company had been irreparably damaged. He had been passed over for several promotions, and his reputation was tarnished. It was a long road, but the lesson had been learned. He had tried to steal from me, and in doing so, he had lost everything. And me? I was finally free. Free from his manipulations and free to move forward in my career. The respect I had earned through my actions was far more valuable than anything Greg had tried to take from me. I didn't need to go to the Super Bowl to feel like a winner. I had already won by staying true to myself.